webinar, Making Millions with 21st Century Technology. I think that you'll really enjoy the presentation we put together for you. A couple housekeeping items. This presentation is being brought to you by NAFA, California. Actually, the YAT group is the one who's doing the presentation as far as sponsoring it. Penny Insurance is going to be the host. For those of you who aren't familiar with NAFA, NAFA is the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors, and you can actually find out more about their programs and services by visiting nafa.org, and you can also join the organization. If you're not a NAFA member, I would encourage you to go ahead and look at it. NAFA is really the organization that protects our industry from a political advocacy standpoint, as well as from legislation and lobbying, both at the state and federal level. And so it's really important that if you're not a NAFA member that you join NAFA. As far as Penny Insurance is concerned, Penny Insurance is being the host today. My name is Ryan Penny, and I will be kind of acting as the moderator throughout the presentation. And as we go through the presentation today, I'm going to be introducing you to three other speakers that we have on the line. And each one of them has really a lot of experience and wealth related to doing marketing online, using the internet as a service, and basically providing access to their consumers online to technologies that have helped them be successful. As far as questions, we will be taking questions throughout the call. If you can put those questions into the chat window, that's the easiest way to proceed. That way we can go ahead and screen those and moderate those as we go. And we'll go ahead and take those questions throughout, and then again open it up to additional questions at the end of the presentation. Again, for those of you who are interested in NAFA, I encourage you to go to nafa.org/join. That'll tell you, that will allow you to join the organization. You can also go to /about. That will let you find out more about NAFA. And then, of course, if you have any questions, you can go to about/contact, which will let you contact someone in one of the NAFA organizations to do it. Penny Insurance, again, is the host. You can contact anyone from our organization at pennyinsurance.com, or since this is a social media webinar, you can contact us at any of the social media brands that are out there today as far as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. Today's panelists include Jeff Rose from Good Financial Sense, Nick West from TrustedQuote.com, Jeff Root from Root Financial, again, myself, Ryan Penny, from Penny Insurance. Jeff actually is something of a rock star in the social media world. For those who aren't already familiar with Jeff, his Good Financial Sense blog actually gets more than 150,000 visitors every single month. That's what I know of. I'm sure, Jeff, you'll tell us some more as we get going. But he also has been able to collect millions of dollars in assets under management, make annuities and life insurance sales using his blog to attract and convert consumers from being basically interested parties who want information to clients and consumers who want to buy products and services. Nick West with TrustedQuote.com really is probably something of a leader in this field. He's been working in the direct sales and marketing aspect of the internet for over 7 years now, has personally sold more than 6,000 policies direct to consumer. For those who aren't really maybe thinking about that number, it's a huge number. Most agents, even those who are very successful, typically sell maybe 100 to 200 policies a year. Nick's averaged closer to 1,000 a year over the last 7 years. And all of those sales, with minimal exception, have been done over the phone instead of in face-to-face meetings. So he really understands how to close on the phone, how to make those sales on the phone, and he'll talk a little bit more about that. We also have Jeff Root from Root Financial. Jeff also has used non-traditional selling practices, doing business over the phone, sold more than 2,000 policies over the last few years, and really has taken advantage of some interesting technologies that I think you'll be really interested in hearing about, that have really helped him expand his practice and grow what he's doing over the last few years, and we'll have Jeff talk about that specifically as well. And then myself, Ryan Penny. Basically, my firm has sold more than 16,000 policies online direct-to-consumer last year, and we have leveraged some technology platforms for agents out there that have helped many of them do the same. As a little bit of a disclaimer, this is not a sales pitch. This is really just an informational webinar, but of the gentlemen on the phone today, pretty much all of them have or do work with my organization at one point or another, or use some of the technology that we utilize. And so I just want to make sure that that's out there kind of in front, so you'll hear them maybe reference some stuff that we're doing. It's not, again, a solicitation or a sales pitch. It's really just a reference point so that you understand what's going on. As we get going into this next section, I'm going to be bringing you Jeff Rose, and we're going to give him control of the webinar here and let him talk. Jeff, if you can go ahead and say hello to the folks.
All right, what's going on? All right. So, Ron, are you controlling this, or am I controlling this?
Actually, let's go ahead and I'll control from this end if you want. And,
okay.
Or I guess Nick can do that. So, Jeff, while we're bringing this up, I want to ask you a couple questions real fast as we get started. You know, you started in blogging really a couple years ago, I guess it's been now, and I'm really interested in how you were able to get past, I think, the compliance aspect of blogging. You know, a lot of people look at blogging, especially in the insurance world today, when you have things like compliance and regulations. I know that you're securities licensed and actually have been with a couple different broker-dealers over the years. You know, before we get started, tell me a little bit about that, because I'm sure that will interest a lot of the listeners on the line today.
Sure. You know, when I first started blogging, I still had my Series 7 license, so I was with LPL Financial. They were my broker-dealer at the time. And I did it the way that they told me to do it. I had to have everything pre-approved prior to me hitting publish and getting it on the web, which was an extreme pain in the butt. But I was able to do, I think it was like 800 articles using that system. And, you know, I had an assistant that was helping me. We had a pretty good system intact as far as getting them submitted, getting them approved, getting them online. But LPL was like, you know, as long as you have everything pre-approved, I wasn't allowed to have comments at the time, so people couldn't, I couldn't comment with people, but I could email them, you know, offline, you know, off the blog. And that's how I did it, you know, and most people, they use the compliance as an excuse, like, oh, I can't do it. You know, LPL initially said, no, you can't do it, and then I explained to them, this is no different than publishing an article, you know, in a newspaper, you know, or an online publication. You know, it's just going to be on my own website. You know, so as long as they pre-approved the material, it went live.
Now, you mentioned a big number there, 800 articles in what time frame?
That would have been from July 2008 to approximately, I guess it would have been 2011, I believe.
So that's nearly one a day. I mean, and I think you're still proceeding at about that same rate today, aren't you?
Yeah, and then if you actually include some other web properties that I run, I mean, it's probably on average more like 2 a day.
Wow. So I'll let you get into your presentation, but I'm sure the next question, and maybe you can reference this as you're going along, is how do you come up with the ideas for your content, or how do you keep your content? Well, I guess how do you make your content? And I'm sure that you'll discuss that at length here in a second.
Yeah, you want me to go ahead and answer that question, or?
Well, you can go into it, or you can go to your slides, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, just to answer that question quickly, you know, initially that was a question I had, like, how am I going to keep coming up with content? And on the financial planning side of things, you know, I'm mostly a financial planner by day, so I just have a lot of situations, you know, a lot of client situations that I come across, you know, just meeting with people and just stories, and so the list never ends. I mean, I've got 80 articles in the queue. I've got a big whiteboard with ideas. I'm always jotting down ideas of a blog post. As far as finding the time, initially I was doing a lot of the writing myself. I was using a mobile transcription service, mobile assistant, you know, where I would just call in and talk. Now I've kind of leveraged. I have some writers that help me out, and basically what I do is, so I'm a really good idea guy. I'm horrible at finishing the idea. So I can like finish the first 80% of a post of an article. So I can like call it in and talk it out, and then I have an editor that will just go through and finish the rest of it. Costs a little bit of money, but I'm able to produce content at a much faster pace that way, and good content as well. You know, might be biased on that opinion, but.
Well, I think the blog and the internet would agree that your content's good, or you wouldn't have the following and the fan base that you do. So.
Yeah, so I mean, what I just really want to kind of share with people, I think a lot of people that don't get involved in social media, blogging, you know, all that is they just have a big misconception of like, oh, it's just, I can't do it. I don't know anything about blogging and don't know anything about internet. I just don't want to get into it. And I just want to like kind of share with people, you know, from the beginning, I do nothing about blogging. The way I got started was I read this article in Financial Planning Magazine back in spring of 2008 that talked about, if you want to be different than every other advisor, you need to start a blog. And the funny thing was, when I read that article, I didn't know what a blog was. I was completely clueless, but I knew I needed one based on this article. So from then, I just started doing research and just figuring out how to do it, and bought my domain, started a blog and just started writing. And if you look at a lot of my old posts, which I think I've deleted most of them because they were just so bad, but it allowed me to get my feet wet and just learn. And the first part of me blogging is my first slide coming up. Is there blogging 0.0?
Yeah, the next slide.
But basically, yeah, I mean, the first part I call blogging 0.0 because I was absolutely clueless. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating that at all. It's almost laughable to think that I've actually been able to grow my blog. And you mentioned, Good Financial Sense last month got 150,000 unique visitors. That's not page views. Sometimes people use page views to make it sound bigger. I mean, these are unique people coming to the site. All my web properties together, I think, are bringing in about 200,000 a month. And, my goal is to get that up more to like 300,000, by the end of the year. But, that's today. Where I was at 10 was, I was happy if I got 10 people to my site. Literally thought blogging was MySpace. No joke. I wasn't on MySpace at the time. I thought it was for high school kids. So I didn't even have a blog. So really was just getting started blogging, and started linking out to some other personal finance bloggers. And most of these individuals are just amateurs. These are people that have 9-to-5 jobs. They like writing about personal finance, and they make a little money on the side. So I just started linking out to them, and all of a sudden they took notice because they thought, oh, this is a certified financial planner that has a blog. And there weren't any of me at the time. If there was like maybe 2 or 3 in the country. Certified financial planners actually were blogging. So I got in a good time because I was like, oh, here's actually a professional, that's blogging. So I made some good connections, started understanding a little bit about SEO, but you never really understand SEO. I mean, you think you do, but Google will throw something at you. But anyway, but just started researching the basics. You went from being on no social media channels whatsoever to just diving in. Opened a Twitter account back in 2008, even though I had no idea what it was. I think I sent one tweet and didn't do anything for 6 months. Then finally started getting on it, and just really started networking with other bloggers. And that, hindsight being 2020, has been a huge thing now, for what direction I've got. So that was kind of the first phase, of blogging. And then as I kind of got it, we go into blogging 1.0. And growing the email list was something I totally took for granted. Didn't really understand why I needed an email list. And then I was introduced to a little thing called Panda, Google Panda. And if you're not familiar with Google and how they operate their algorithms, basically I went from 100,000 visitors a month down to 26,000 a month overnight by a flip of a switch. This was back in April 2011. And that was just demoralizing because I had spent 2.5 years growing my blog, one of the most recognized blogs, and all of a sudden my traffic just gets cut off. And just if everybody's listening, that I wasn't doing anything illegal. It's just that's what Google does every once in a while. So just be prepared if you dive in this space. But then I really focusing on building a community, building the email list. So I started, a newsletter, just connecting. Jumped into YouTube, something I've been doing. I can't remember how many videos I've done, but I've got the Good Financial Sense YouTube channel, and YouTube's crazy. I mean, it's just a whole other arena, that you can market yourself and people can discover you. I've got clients that have just found me on YouTube, which is like almost laughable. And I think one client found me because I did a YouTube video at 11 o'clock at night and had it edited and uploaded, and they called me the next week. So I mean, YouTube's another area that I need to be comfortable with and jump in. So
that brings up a good question, Jeff. And
mm-hmm.
with YouTube, and you and I have talked offline many a time about various strategies, and I think YouTube and video content is kind of one of those areas that's really growing rapidly. But I think what happens with a lot of people out there is they're not sure which kind of, what to make. Does it have to be professional? How do you do it? So I've seen plenty of your videos. But I think for the benefit of those who are listening, what does your typical video look like, and how do you actually make it?
Sure, and I will say, if you, I made a reference to my earlier blog post, how, you almost laugh when you see them. When I look at my first YouTube videos, I mean, they were horrible. I bought an HD webcam, for my office computer, put it on my monitor, and just started recording, and I would talk for 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and just shared a story, talking about Roth IRAs or talking about what you need to do with, if you need to buy life insurance, whatever, and just kind of just talked. And the more you do it, the better you get, because I started realizing there were a lot of the filler words, the ums, the kindas, the actuallys, and which is really bad. I looked at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, seriously? I need to delete you. But that was it. It was kind of the same thing as with my blog posts. It was just telling a story, and with blogging and with doing video, that's what people resonate the most. When you can share a story, and for everyone on this call, they have stories working with individuals. We all have our stories, and most likely if you have a story about a certain individual, there's several thousand other individuals going into the exact same situation that they can relate to. So that's how I always did it, was focusing on the story. I did get a little bit more strategic in the keywords, and this took time though. This is something that I didn't really understand in the beginning, and even I'm still learning this day. So I would target strategic keywords that I thought had a higher traffic volume, and then I would either do blog posts or do video posts, targeting those keywords, but also trying to convey a story element as well. So to answer your question, I started with a webcam, that I bought off Amazon for like $50, and it was an HD webcam. Right now, we went from that to a Kodak ZI-8, on a tripod, which is one of those handheld kind of flip cameras, $100. I think it's discontinued now, but relatively inexpensive. But now we're a little bit more professional. We're using a Canon SLR camera that my wife takes. She does all her family pictures with those as well, but does awesome video quality, and we have like a whole studio set up in our basement now.
So basically, the short answer is you started out with really basic, kind of fundamental, easy-to-do stuff, and it's growing from there. So I guess the key takeaway there is you don't have to be, a video producer with, production quality equipment. You can really get started and really take advantage of this video medium with just the most bare bones, basic stuff to get going. Would you agree?
Exactly. Absolutely. No, I've seen some awesome videos of people using their freaking iPhone, and that's it. And, you got to be in a close setting, have some good lighting. But, they're using their iPhone, and you couldn't tell. You had no idea. So, there's so many ways you can do it.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and this, finishing out this slide, one of the things with, I always kind of perusing the insurance forums and just people talking about building their websites and like, oh, you need to get quality backlinks. And you probably hear that all the time. But, like, how in the heck do you actually do that? And, that's one of the things with networking with other bloggers was, I could get backlinks, and I would guest post. And the first 6 months, I went on a guest posting frenzy, and I think I guest posted like 30 times, on 30 different blogs, like in a 3.5-month time period. And that kind of put me on the map, and then I got kind of lazy, and then I after Panda, I started back on it. So I started doing even more backlinks. And then that will take us to where we're at now. So in the last year, I've been able to pull off some pretty cool things. One of the things in my space was, like, a lot of people knew me, but, there's still a lot of newer bloggers that weren't familiar with me, and then obviously outside the space. So I came up with this random idea, and the initial one was called the Roth IRA movement, and just had all these bloggers write about the Roth IRA on a particular day, which I had over 150 individual bloggers take part. And try to organize 150 people to write about a certain topic on a certain day takes a lot of work. But one of the things I got out of that was, one, I had 150 people linking to me all on the exact same day. And then also I immediately became, the Roth IRA guy, in our space. And everybody's like, oh, if they didn't know who Jeff Rose was, like they knew after that. That was in March of last year, and then I replicated that again in the fall with the life insurance movement, which I know Penny took part as well. LifeAware was the hashtag on Twitter. Same results. 160 people took part, all getting links to to my site. And then this most recently I started the debt movement, which is just kind of another thing. But the cool thing was now it's like people know me, and they're always asking me, oh, what's the next thing? What are you doing? What's going on? So just introducing thought leadership. Google has this thing called Google authorship, and if you're not paying attention to this, you need to. And it's basically just a way to recognize, if you're a content producer and your content's good, this is a way of Google recognizing that. So I've been able to guest post on sites like U.S. News, U.S. Market Watch, Equifax, ChamberOfCommerce.com, Get Rich Slowly, just some bigger sites that I've been able to get a Google author profile on that site. So now when I guest post and get more links, it's just showing it's getting to be more credible. And it's something that's easy to set up. It's it's free for one. So it's just one thing I've really been focusing on, and always finding new opportunities that I can expand on that. And then here in the last year, recognizing, I don't know if I even recognize this, but I was ranking decent for some life insurance terms on my site on Good Financial Sense, and I'm like, how do I actually turn these people into life sales? Like, I know there's a commission to be made, and why do I need to give that to SelectQuote or whoever else? So I just started Googling, going online, and that's where I stumbled upon Penny Insurance and their quoter and whatnot. And so that's what I've been working on, and using my unfair advantage, which would be my network with my other personal finance bloggers, my somewhat knowledge of SEO and how to drive backlinks, have been really been focusing on that in the past year. Like really been focusing on really hard and heavy. And you'll see the next bullet point there. I told Paul Sanfilippo there at Penny, he's been my right-hand man for the last year, just helping me understand the big picture. I've been building the email list, on the blog, but there really hasn't been a primary focus. So right now we're really focusing on building like lead nurturing campaigns, building the system and processes, and to drive just more revenue and just grow that team. So big shout out to Paul, big shout out to Penny. I know this is not a paid commercial, but you guys didn't find me, I found you, and it's just been instrumental, with doing everything. So.
Well, of course, I appreciate the nice words, but one thing I want to go back one slide real fast, and I want to have you talk a little bit about the debt movements, because about the thought leadership and the movements in general. And you mentioned we did participate in the Roth IRA movement early on, and you've done a couple since. One of the things that I think was interesting from my perspective, looking at what you were doing with these movements, is really you came up with an idea, and you decided this is a good idea to talk about, and really you had not just yourself and not just a handful of people, but literally hundreds of blogs and some really major brand names participate in some of these movements. Will you kind of talk through that a little bit more and really just kind of describe a little bit how that works for you?
Yeah. So, the Roth IRA thing was just kind of a random, I want to see if I can do this, and I was hopeful to get maybe 25 to 50 people take part. And, when it ended up being, almost 150, for something I just thought of, like on a way home, one night. And, just from that movement alone, getting recognized, Huffington Post, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Yahoo Finance, Reuters. I mean, there was some big media that picked that up. And, I was able just to leverage that awareness, into the other movements. And, now it's like when I did this debt movement, for now I have like MSN Money, like they're wanting to take part, AARP wanting to asking me, oh, we want to help you in this. And, these are just, there has been some revenue made from it, but it's really more, I'm just planting some seeds for something really big. I don't know what that big thing is yet, other than I do have a book coming out this fall. But, it's just building my community, I guess, building my raving fans, we'll say.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. So, and if you have questions, again, I've been answering questions for people throughout this presentation on the chat, which is a great tool. And then, of course, some of the questions I've been asking Jeff were related to what people had asked in the chat. So if you have questions, by all means, please put them there, and that way we can make sure that they're included in part of the presentation. As we move on to the next guest speaker or the panelist here today, Nick West. Again, Nick really is, in my mind, kind of I'm going to say an oddity, but I think in a good way inside of the industry related to doing direct sales and marketing. the amount of sales that he has made over the internet and over the phone over the last really 7, almost 8 years now has been really kind of unique and also, I think, a tremendous advantage to those people that he comes in contact with, because he's able to basically leverage this technology and focus purely on the sales aspect of it. And I know that you're going to talk some about this as well. So without any further ado, Nick West.
Thanks so much. Hope everybody's doing well today. So we have kind of a multi-tier mentality around here. There is those that the sales process kind of starts in 3 funnels, if you will. Jeff spoke very well on how to turn, prospects into leads, and I'm not going to talk about that whatsoever. I'm going to talk about how to convert leads into customers, into paid policies. And third part of the funnel, obviously, being turning those customers into your fans, which again, that's going to be a Jeff and Jeff thing. Well, I'll stay focused on how to convert those internet leads into clients, actual paid clients. So what Ryan mentioned, I'm kind of an oddity, and I like being an oddity. As you can tell, I'm part of the Gen Y generation, and we Gen Ys do not like to be fit into boxes. So I don't like taking the track that some people take, or most people take, I should say. So I've kind of done multiple things within our industry and done them, pretty successfully. So give you a little bit more background. I am the current YAT chair for NAPA Northern California. So what I do there is help out our local and kind of talk to the generally aging NAPA population about how the young kids are doing it these days and how it's going to be done in the future, and try to help other NAPA members and quite frankly anybody who will talk to me over the phone. I'm pretty passionate about talking about direct sales. So feel free to give me a call anytime. Yeah, a lot of policies written over the past 7 years. It's actually slightly more than that. But if you take a step back and instead of policies, talk premium. And a lot of people think like, wow, it takes a lifetime to collect what I've collected in 7 years. I mean, 6,000 policies is almost $8 million in premium is what I've taken in. And virtually never seen a client face-to-face, with the exception of an internet lead turning out to be in my backyard where I've gone and done a hand delivery of a policy from time to time. But, it's virtually all completely over the phone inside of a system that works. You get burnout in selling insurance over the phone quickly. While I'm passionate about it, I'm actually quite a bit more passionate about teaching others to do it. It's interesting that when an agent reaches out to me and I've been doing business this way, I've knocked on so many doors, my knuckles hurt, and crazy by definition is doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result. So I teach them how to turn from a knocking on doors to investing some time and money into a different marketing strategy, and it works well for those that have the drive and have the capital. It completely changes the way they do business. And I personally have raving fans who are agents. They're my raving fans. Jeff had mentioned his raving fans being clients. Mine are clients as well as agents. And I'm a little bit I'm pretty proud of the agent piece. So I work with the independent guy, and right now, again, I don't like fitting in boxes, and I don't like doing just one thing. I think most of the guys on the phone here today don't do one thing. They do many things and wear many hats. One of my hats today is the Director of Direct Marketing here at TrustedQuote.com. TrustedQuote.com is our direct marketing division that Penny Insurance owns, and I lead that charge with, providing internet leads, training new guys to come in and kind of sit in the chair and replicate a process that I know that works. I mean, I kind of joke that, a monkey could do this if it was a motivated monkey. And, it's the motivation that keeps people going in this business. And I'm also a brokerage director here at Penny Insurance. That's where I deal primarily with the agent side of the house. One thing that drives me crazy is, Nick, I want to generate more business, make more sales. Here's my current marketing methodology, and I want to supplement that with internet leads. My first response to that is, this is not a part-time job. I mean, you got to pick one or the other. I have yet to see a successful agent that, in the end, doesn't talk badly about internet leads. What I mean by that is, if they're splitting time between face-to-face appointments, knocking on doors, prospecting, getting referrals, and then also, buying internet leads from all the big house shops like NetQuote, iLeads, etc., having them emailed to their inbox, and then, I'll give them a call after 6 o'clock tonight because that's when I think they'll be available. But in reality, that lead's been sitting in their inbox for the last 6 hours. We all know that immediate contact gets the sale. Another question I have for an agent that is considering, making a move to this type of business process is, give me your phone call experience. Have you ever cold called before? Have you prospected over the phone? These are kind of, learn to walk before you learn to run kind of things. And, you got to be comfortable with a phone. I mean, plain and simple. You can spend a lot of money on leads, go through some great training processes, and then when it comes down to it, if you've got call reluctance, I mean, you wasted a lot of your time and money. It's not a fallback job. It's actually quite difficult, but can be very, very profitable. There's a lot of cost savings involved with doing business over the phone versus face-to-face, gas, car, etc. You know the drill. And last but not least, you must invest money to make money. It's one of those phone calls I get pretty regularly. How do I break out into this? And if you say yes to all, the top points there, but my budget for buying leads is $100 a month or $200 a month, that's not enough money to make a living with internet leads.
Nick, let me jump in here and ask you a quick question real fast. So you mentioned a couple things, and I'm sure you'll probably hit some of them, but you mentioned this isn't a part-time job, and you mentioned needing to have a budget with leads, and obviously I think this is more directed towards purchasing leads versus maybe generating your own web leads. For example, the way that Jeff Rose has kind of done it. But would you say that the mentality, the process is basically the same, whether you're buying the leads or you've created a website that's going to generate the leads for you? Would you say that the process ends up being the same process?
At the end of the day, it's almost the same process. When you've got what you turned from a prospect into a lead, and there's a big difference there. A prospect is someone that's out there on the internet looking around. That's a prospect for life insurance. They have yet to go to a website, and that's what guys like Jeff Rose and Jeff Root and some of the other good marketers out there, they're great at doing that. They're great at turning that prospect into a lead. What I'm referring to is any lead that is generated, it needs to be treated similarly, whether that's a purchase lead, a organic lead that is just out there searching online and organically getting to a blog or website. When that lead converts, again, doesn't matter if it's purchased or generated in-house, it needs to be dealt with. And that's the problem, is most agents don't know how to deal with them, and they're quick to go and say, well, NetQuote, they produce very bad leads. Well, how quickly did you call that lead? How many did you make contact with? I mean, what was your call strategy? What kind of technology? How did you send an email to them? And there's a couple things I'll touch on here in just a second that will kind of be like aha moments for agents. And, I'll hit on those here in just a second. One of those items right there, obviously, is infrastructure. So, big problem. Most agents get their leads, sent to them via email. That is not infrastructure. Infrastructure is, either buying a lead or generating a lead and having it go somewhere, and that somewhere needs to do something. So what I'm referring to is a CRM system. So, you need to have leads delivered to a CRM that automatically does certain things. A, notifies you, hey, you got a new lead, take action. B, sends that lead an email automatically without you having to do anything. In my business, I don't email people. My system does. So when an email hits my system, an auto-generated email, or a lead rather hits my system, an auto-generated email goes right out to that client, or that lead rather, and says, hey, Mr. Client, this is Nick West. I'll be calling you shortly. If you get a chance, give me a call. Here's my direct number. Here's my email. Or reply back with a time that works best for you. It looks like I literally took the time to sit and type that out to that prospect or that lead. I didn't. I typed that out once, and it's gone out thousands of times since with all the leads I've worked over the years. So infrastructure is one. Capital, I touched on that. This is a business. There's no doubt about that. If you don't think this is a business, you're in the wrong business. You need money, like most businesses do. You need to invest capital into your business and see it grow. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to succeed here. You will have to be the guy that's out there knocking on doors until you can come up with enough capital to get an internet leads business off the ground. Don't give it long enough.
With the capital part, and I've got a couple questions that have popped up as we've been going here, related to how many leads do you need, what's the appropriate budget, how much capital do you need to invest, what is the typical full-time agent who's generating or buying leads, how many leads they need, let's say on a monthly basis, and what kind of budget does that typically look like?
I'll break down things like different kinds of leads, their conversions, and their costs here in just a minute. I think that'll answer a lot of the questions. And then we'll kind of break it down and say, here's how many of those that you would need to, generate a good income. And I'll break that down for you in just a second. One thing is, most agents don't give it long enough. I've had countless agents come to me and say, great, I'm going to buy, 100 leads. I've got a website. I've got, a professional-looking email. I've got an 800 number. I invested all this money, and they buy their 100 leads, and they, after 100 leads, say, well, that didn't work. I'm going to move on. I'm going to go back to knocking on doors. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, you have to give this business long enough, and if someone thinks 100 leads is a good test, it's not for anything. Even if it's a different lead source, 100 leads is not a good test. It needs to be more leads and given longer to see if this is a sustainable business model for you. And I'll show you in later slides how to do that as cost effectively as possible. Computer skills, I mean, those are all things that can be taught and learned. But when I'm talking about different technologies and what have you, you have to have basic knowledge of how to use an internet-based phone, how to use a dialer, how to use simple email, CRM systems, and what have you. Those are all easily taught and learned, but they're necessary. You can't manage internet leads without these types of systems. The work ethic piece. One of my problems, or one of the situations I have with agents, and I try to help them overcome that, is hey Nick, I bought aged leads, I got the dialer, and I've yet to make a single sale. And I say, well, I know that you bought 2,000 aged leads. How many calls have you made? 400. Over how long? 5 days. That's not enough. I mean, you need to be banging out 800 calls a day. You need to have that ethic to keep that thing going. Lack of product knowledge. I see a lot of health agents, Medicare guys changing course right now and trying to get into this space, because most health guys do sell over the phone already. But they'll jump right into life and think that it's simple. That would be like me jumping right into health and thinking it's simple. I know nothing about health insurance, so don't ask me a question. If I've got a client that asks about health insurance, I refer it out. I don't have that product knowledge. I don't sell that product. I don't buy those leads. This is the typical agent process. The lead gets delivered from whoever they purchased it from, NetQuote, whatever, gets delivered to this agent's email account. Agent goes, grabs coffee, looks at the email, agent calls the lead, agent sends the lead a manual email. That happens over the course of, let's call it 3 hours, from lead delivery to when the call is picked up. Seems like, oh, I'm on the ball today. Now let me show you my process. Lead gets delivered to my CRM. My CRM system sends it to my dialer. My dialer immediately dials it. My CRM immediately sends an introduction email that's automated. my CRM system sends a text message that's automated with messages. So I just sent 3 contact mediums to this client within a minute of that lead getting delivered to my CRM system. There's no way Agent A can compete with my technology. It just doesn't work. And that's why a lot of times agents will, talk badly about, about leads and about lead providers. There's a reason that companies like eFinancial, Matrix Direct buy tens of thousands of leads from companies like NetQuote. You think they'd be buying that many leads if it wasn't profitable? They wouldn't. So they do, and it is profitable if it's done right. This is how they do it, and this is how I teach agents to go and do virtually the same thing with technology that's quite affordable. It's not a part-time job aspect of this. I just want to break out my day real quick. I ask a question to agent, house, and external. If you've got a client in your office and a prospect on the phone, who are you going to talk to? Or a prospect calling in, who are you going to talk to? And if you say the client in your office, you're wrong. You want to talk to that prospect that's on the phone. The client that's in the office, he's already there to see you, and he's already virtually bought from you. The guy on the phone hasn't, so talk to the guy on the phone. And how I relate that to my day is, why would I spend the first 3 hours responding to emails? Hey Nick, I've got a question on the application. Can you help my wife out? Get her insurance policy. All the while, new leads are coming into my system, and
I gotta go to the bathroom.
So how I set the day up is, the first 15 minutes of my day, I come in, I sit down, I scan through everything that's come in overnight, so email responses, voicemails, but I'm not going to respond to anything other than, a lead that has called me back or emailed me back and said, hey, I'm ready, let's talk. That's the only person I'm going to call back before I call new leads. And then I spend the next 3 hours calling through leads only. And I may make 200 calls in that 3 hours, trying to get leads back on the phone, get them to a sales process. Once I have fully gone through all lead calls, I'll take an hour and, go through and respond to those client, service requests or questions, or I need to change my beneficiary, those kinds of items. Those can wait. Again, that's the guy that's in your office, not the guy that's the prospect on the phone. I spend an hour a day typically working on marketing, hour a day working on people that fell out of the process. We've all got sales that we've made, and then all of a sudden your client's a ghost. They've got buyer's remorse. There's an hour a day that goes into recovering those people, and then a couple hours at the end of the day that's going towards calling leads again. So this is not a 3-hour day here. This is a 9-hour day, and it needs to be consistent and laid out as such. So some of the technology must-haves. Number one for me, CRM system, absolutely. You cannot manage leads in your email inbox or on paper. It just doesn't work. A website. So you may think that's a hard thing to go out and build or what have you, but there's so many agent resource websites out there. You can pay $30 a month for, $50 a month, whatever the cost is. But the important piece you get out of that is the fact that you've got a custom domain. And off of that custom domain, you get your email address. So, you as a consumer, would you rather buy from somebody that's sending you an email from a Gmail account or from a, Jeff at goodfinancialsense.com? My guess is the latter. 800 number is not 100% necessary, but it's preferred, and it's cheap. A soft phone, what I mean by that is you want to have as much mobility as possible with your business. So why be tethered to one place? Don't have a hard phone sitting on your desk. Have a soft phone that you can plug in, a headset right into your computer and use a system like RingCentral or what have you. A call strategy. Got to have a call strategy in place. That kind of boils back down to, what your day-to-day looks like. But the call strategy is, I'm going to dial these leads when and how often, and kind of, come up with a 60-day process for leads. And quite frankly, I have a 90-day process for leads inside of my dialer system. Lastly, an application team. There's absolutely no way that I would have been able to write 6,000 enforce policies. That basically equals about 9,000 applications on my own. So I'll do the sales process, and I'll hand off the administrative process to my application team, and my application team, they'll accept the live transfer of a client, and basically they act as my assistant, and they'll say, hey, let's fill out the rest of the application. I'll sit with you while you sign it electronically, and my app team does everything for me after the sale. That gets me right back on the phone, calling new prospects, just kind of churning through leads. CRM system, just to touch on that, I know I'm running short on time here. It manages your leads, sends all your automated emails, does drip marketing. A good CRM system is going to automate things like follow-ups and action items. So, if I tell my system that I made contact with this person but didn't make a sale, it has to do something automatically for me. So I can do 1 keystroke instead of 5. So it'll tell me, follow up tomorrow, follow up next week, send an email. It all does that automatically. Basically, it's a hub for your business. Some examples of good CRM systems out there. Each has its pros and cons. And VAM, Database, Radius, Salesforce, Sugar, highly customizable but kind of expensive. Data Raptor, which is it's not in existence quite yet, but it's something I'm quite proud of. It's a CRM system that's homegrown that will be hitting the market very soon, probably within the next quarter. And this is your hub. If you don't have this, get this, and we can give you some good recommendations. Script process. I know this is really small. If anybody wants this, just shoot me an email after the fact. But the script is very important. It's taken me 7-8 years to really refine the script and how to react to certain objections, or how to know objections are coming based on answers to questions or what have you from a consumer. And this script is really built around mitigating objections and assuming sale. My analogy for internet leads is who steps on a car lot with no intention of buying a car? I mean, that's kind of the same situation here. You don't step on a car lot. You don't want to talk to car salesmen. They're going to come up to you and try to sell you something. So, if you weren't prepared to buy a car, you wouldn't step on a lot, typically. Same thing with life insurance. Consumers know that if they're putting their phone number on something, they're going to be called. And if you're calling them and kind of, coming at the sales process very timid, kind of begging for the sale, if you will, it's not gonna work out for you. You got to assume they're a buyer, and once you get past and understand that assuming the sale is what makes the sale, you'll do very well once you assume. So this is great script. I mean, it's got some key components to it. Kind of keeps the outline flowing. And again, if you want it, let me know. Different tricks that I use. Seeing is believing these days, and web conferencing is really the only way to see, having a prospect see what you're talking about. And I know Jeff Root uses web conferencing quite a bit. I use it quite a bit. I use join.me, free service, allows you to, on a web-based chassis, tell a client, go to join.me and enter this 9-digit code, and you'll see my screen, and it takes 10 seconds to do. So what I use it for is things like, I've got a health analyzer that I run with clients. I deal with quite a few high-risk clients, impaired risk. And, sometimes they will, if you're not using web conferencing and walking them through a health analyzer, give me your height and weight, give me, what medication, smoking status, you've got diabetes, here's 5 more questions. And if they're seeing, here's why I'm asking it, and the end result is, okay, Prudential's $52, Banner's 62, ING, whatever, and they're seeing, okay, this agent is not just blowing smoke here. This is a true system that analyzes my health as a client and tells the agent, what carrier they should offer. I trust this guy. He's showing me, the tricks of the trade, if you will, and it's easy. One thing I do inside of my dialer from time to time and in my soft phone system to increase contact rates is I own a couple different phone numbers. It's not expensive. It doesn't cost very much to do that, like $12 a year. And I'll change my caller ID every few days. So, if I've got a prospect that now sees my 800 number for the 4th time in 2 days, I'm going to change that over to my 916 number. And now they're going to, well, who's this 916 guy? So I'll kind of trick them into answering. Nothing illegal about that. And then blocking your caller ID is another trick as well. One thing that I've been using for the past 3 years is text messaging, and I'll tell you, I've never seen faster response to a message I've sent. The typical response rate, or response time rather, on text messaging is 4 minutes. And it works very well, and it's not very expensive to use. And I'm not talking about sending a text message from your cell phone to your lead. That's, in my opinion, unprofessional. There's web-based services that are pretty inexpensive to use. Again, have a team behind you, assume the sale. I've touched on those items already. I think this is what you're most interested in, and Ryan, you asked this question, is let's talk about technology costs as well as lead conversions, which is the next slide. So technology costs, you're pretty typical, middle of the road. CRM system's going to run you, call it $50. You may find some cheaper, find some more expensive. There's a reason they're both ways. Phone system, this is going to be like a Ring Central. This is going to be a VoIP-based phone system that's, you plug right into your computer. You don't need a phone sitting on your desk. Website, if you're going the WordPress route, you got, call it $20 in there with, hosting and domain ownership and what have you. And for those that, go hardcore, in my opinion, go dialer route, there's a service there running anywhere from $100 to, $200 a month, depending on service. And some integrate with CRM system, which our system will do that. So call it $260 a month. If I'm talking to an agent that's got, $200 a month budget, they're not even going to cover their cost of technology. Lead cost and conversions, and I know I don't know if Jeff Root is going to touch on this at all, but he's, in my mind, the aged leads guru. That's the go-to guy. If you have an aged leads question, he'll shoot you straight. Here's my experience with aged leads. I buy them at about 35 cents a pop, so I'll buy them in typically 2,000 blocks and give them to new agents or help new agents, facilitate that purchase. Conversion rate, absolute lowest you're ever going to see on internet leads, obviously for a reason. They're old, and they could have been generated any which way. But calling it a 0.5% conversion is high. So 0.045% is kind of where you're going to be. For those that think that there's no money to be made there, there's absolutely money to be made there, but it also requires the most time commitment. For you to make money with aged leads, you need to be buying about 4,000 aged leads a month. 35 cents a pop, you're talking, $1,400. But do the math on that with an average case size of about $950 to $1,100, and then your commission rate, and then come back to me and talk about ROI. Once you've done the math, you'll see. Shared leads, you can negotiate a pretty good shared price. $10 a pop is pretty typical. Conversion rate 3, 4, 5%, right in that line. Again, do the math on that. There's money to be made there if done right. And then once you've kind of graduated from age to shared, go to exclusive, and you can buy exclusive leads. These are all assuming that you're purchasing leads. 10% conversion. Pay-per-click, that's kind of your end result is, buying traffic from Google, buying from Yahoo, Bing, different types of media outlets. You can put up, paid sponsored ads on their websites. At the end of the day, what it costs to generate a lead is anywhere from, 30 to $90, but they have the absolute highest conversion rate. So, a lot of guys want to go straight from, knocking on doors to exclusive leads, and pretty expensive option. And if they don't have experience working, age leads or shared leads and have all the right technology in place, they crash and burn pretty quickly. What I mentioned earlier, I see a lot of agents moving from their core product to life insurance, primarily, due to health reform, Obamacare. What's happening there in Washington is really changing the way that guys are doing business these days. And there's a problem with that because they go straight from a product they're completely comfortable with, either selling face-to-face or over the phone, to going to a completely new product, albeit, life insurance, that's a simple sale. You die, you get money. That's not it. I mean, there's so much underwriting and product knowledge involved with, where do I go for the guy who just filed bankruptcy last year when 95% of insurance companies will decline that? Where do I go for that guy? So there's some different resources out there, and NAFA, they're a great resource for various parts of the training process. But I also want to give a quick shout out to ILA, the Independent Life Insurance Agents Association. A lot of the guys on here are, members of ILA, and I'd recommend checking them out as well. Nick Perry and the guys over at ILA are great. They helped us actually put together EasyLifeTraining.com, and that is a kind of a penny-sponsored training process for new agents. And you go pay a fee, but small fee, invest in your career, and it allows you to really jumpstart your career, especially if you're going from health, Medicare, PNC, what have you, over to life, long-term care, annuities. There's different training modules in there that allow an agent to go from, being a rookie, in Jeff's words, 0.0 to a 3.0 agent, very quickly. And, it's at your leisure. So, like I said, we'll hold all the questions. There's quite a few questions on the webinar here, and we'll respond to those as they come.
So Nick, I do have two questions I want to have you hit before we move to the next section, though, real quick. A lot of people ask about CRMs. I think you kind of covered that. Generally speaking, there's a lot of CRMs out there. I know that probably every guy on this phone call uses a different one or some version of a different one, and we have different pieces of technology. For example, I don't have a dialer that I use because I don't do the mass sales like you do, or like Jeff Rose or Jeff Root does. But I mean, generally speaking, a CRM in general is what we're saying is required. There's obviously pros and cons to all those ones out there. A lot of people are asking for a specific recommendation. I'm not sure that we would probably give them one. I'm not sure unless you have one specifically that you think is a good starting place. And then the second question was about soft phones. And the soft phones in general kind of was what does a soft phone do, or how does it work? You mentioned it plugs into a computer. Someone asked specifically about Skype and a few others. I mean, do you have a preference for soft phones? Maybe you can address those two items very quickly.
Yeah, no problem. I've used quite a few of each, and I'll tell you a few of my preferences, and I'll touch on Skype for a minute as well. So CRM systems, I mean, there's such a variance in cost, and there's such a variance in what they're capable of doing. So if you get a CRM system that, accepts an inbound lead and, it notifies you like, okay, you've got this new case, you got to call on it, that's all well and good. But if it doesn't do key components like, one-click process changes, this went from a status of a new lead to a I've attempted contact or sale made, and that system needs to be able to do certain things for you. As far as like recommendations, I mean, we're a big fan of, for agents, by agents, and, we use a CRM system that we've completely built and from the ground up, and it'll be available to, for agent use later on this year. But there's several out there today that do the function that we're talking about, things like Radius. Radius is a great CRM system. Has quite a few robust features and does automated tasks like I'm referring to. So, as an entry level, I would say jump into Radius before you go and invest, $500 as a startup cost, and then, $300 a month with a company called like Inside Sales or one of those firms. As far as phone systems are concerned, I've used Vonage, all well and good. Take it with you, forward to your cell phone. It's got all the right features. A little bit on the pricey side. I've also used RingCentral. That was my preference, is RingCentral. It's got all the robust features, about $40 a month, does all kinds of things. And one of my #1 requirements was live transfer. So that is the ability to be talking to a client and transfer that client to my application team. Vonage didn't allow me to do that, so I switched over to RingCentral, and it works beautifully. So I want to be able to do a live transfer so that client does not get off the phone before they complete their application with my assistant. So I'm able to transfer over warm and say, hey, Rebecca, my assistant, I've got John Smith on the phone here. John, Rebecca's going to take good care of you. I'm going to let you go. I'll call you back in a week or two, give you an update. Live transfer is absolutely crucial to completing applications and doing business over the phone. And I'm sorry, Brian, what was your last question there?
The last question really, I think it's for the whole group, and I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it. Someone asked about, does all this stuff that we're talking about apply to a local independent agent what if I'm not licensed in all 50 states? And so my question, I guess, to the group as a whole is, how many people on the call, as far as the moderators are concerned, are licensed in at least 10 or more states, if not all 50?
I'm all 50.
Jeff Root?
I'm all 50 as well.
Jeff Rose?
Yeah, I'm all 50.
Yeah. So you guys, went out and took the time to get licensed in all 50 states, but that's because you're selling in all 50 states. Is that correct? I mean, you're generating leads on the internet. You don't really have a control over who comes to your website. It can be from anywhere. Is that the general gist?
Right, and that's just because of the way we market. You can generate local business, and you don't need to do that.
Yeah, and when it comes to purchasing leads, just kind of throw this out there for the group as well, is when you're able to buy on a national level, you can go back and negotiate much, much better pricing on leads than going and saying, I want this zip code. It's very hard. So for a marketer like the Jeffs here, if they want to go out and target a specific zip code, they would have to put in some serious effort, and there's limited volume of leads available in that particular zip code. So their cost and their time to generate a lead in Sacramento County is a lot more than generating a lead in California or national. So that's it's a great investment to make, and it's pricey. You're a few grand a year in licensing, but you go to a site like NIPR, National Insurance Producers Registry, and they package it up for you. And not all agents need to be licensed in all 50 states, because I would say 90% of our business is done in 30 states. So if you generate a lead or buy a lead in one of those other 20 states, then you can pick up a license as you go. But starting with 10, 20, 30. Over the course of your first 6 months of selling this way and purchasing leads is the way to go, in my opinion.
Great, thank you very much for that. And then one last question popped up, which was about conversion, and I can fill it probably just as well as anybody, but conversion really is talking about the leads that you get, whether you purchase them or generate them on your site, how many of those ultimately convert over to a paid policy. Kind of a side note on that is somebody asked also kind of in conjunction to that is the retention, or basically the how well does that business stay on the books? Any of you guys care to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've got all the numbers. I mean, with my leading the direct marketing side here, I can tell you down to a decimal point what it is. I mean, without going too far into the weeds there, if you're looking at shared leads and exclusive leads, there's a huge difference in conversion. So typical conversion on an exclusive lead that is search generated is right around 11%. So you buy 100 leads, cost you $2,000 at $20 a pop, but you're converting 11%. So you converted 11 policies out of that 100 leads. Call it $900 average. There's $9,000 in premium there. Or, well, I guess a little bit more. But then you take your commission rate and look at your ROI. That's your typical conversion. And do the same math on a $10 shared lead that's going to convert at 4 or 5%. And then on, pay-per-click and, different media sources and what have you, just, again, do the math based on the slide that I had put up.
Right, and those conversions, those are applications, actual applications. It's not placement.
And then what kind of placement ratios are you guys looking at typically off of those conversion to app?
In the purchase space, you're right around 70%. And your last question was retention of year 2 client, so policy staying on the books. I'll tell you, since we started recommending annual pay, so we only accept two forms of payment typically, monthly and annual. Those have the highest year 2 retention rate, and we're over 90%. I mean, for us to say that, you guys may question that, but that's completely the case. We have the data to back that up. 47% or 42% rather, sorry, reaching for numbers here, 42% of our business was paid annual last year. That's a huge number. So you don't see a lot of cancellation on an annual basis. And we just tell clients, go ahead and put on your credit card, save 3%, get cash back on your credit card, save 4.5% on the premium itself, and be done with it. A lot of people take that, but the problem is not a lot of agents offer it. Just tell them they can save a little money, and then monthly, you put it on auto pay and just forget about it. And retention is very high on that business.
Great, thank you very much. I think at this point, there's still questions coming up, and I'll try to answer those as we go. But I think the next section really is the one I'm actually looking forward to, because I know that, Jeff, you're always looking at new technologies and always trying to find new ways to do business, and definitely not the same old thing from my perspective looking at what you're doing. And so without further ado, Jeff Root.
And Jeff, I'm going to go ahead and turn over control to you.
Okay. Okay, so before I start, let me just give you a little background about myself. I've been a life insurance agent since 2005. I've been selling over the phone primarily since 2007. And since then, I placed over 2,000 life insurance policies in force. And what I know for sure about this business is that every year, selling life insurance over the phone changes. When I started back in 2007, you could buy leads from just about anywhere and make a great profit. Now I wouldn't touch 90% of the lead vendors out there. So over the years, I've had to continually reinvent my life insurance business and marketing practices as an independent agent. So for my segment of the webinar, I'm just going to go over 3 new strategies that I credit for the continued growth in my business over this last year. One of them was extracting referral sources from internet leads, getting published in niche verticals to generate leads, and also building a segmented database of prospects. So the first topic I'll cover is extracting referral sources from internet leads. And this was by far the biggest game changer in my business last year. And I'm not talking about asking for referrals here. I'm talking about developing referral sources. So centers of influence is a term that's thrown around a lot. Call it what you want, but I'm talking about developing a steady stream of referrals from one source. So over the last year, I've collected some great referral sources, and every one of these referral sources were extracted from an internet lead I worked. My top referral source sends me around 40 referrals per month, and these are referrals who are required to purchase life insurance. So we're writing about 15 to 20 non-med policies every month just from this referral source. So, this can be a game changer for anyone's business. And all this takes is an awareness when you're working with your prospects. So just listen to why your prospects need the coverage, and also listen for past declines. For example, when a prospect tells you they were declined from State Farm, for example, because of, let's just say, their diabetes, and then you went around and secured them affordable coverage. As an independent life insurance, I know that the State Farm, the Farmers, their underwriting for life insurance is very, very strict. And, we secure declines from them all day long. So that State Farm agent is a potential referral source for you. Even though they offer life insurance, they just don't offer any higher risk insurance. So once the coverage is enforced, ask who their State Farm agent is and give them a quick call. Make sure you drop their client on this call, and let the State Farm agent know that you were successfully able to help their client secure coverage, and ask for their future declines or high-risk clients. Present this as a value-added service. I have a few, one Farmers agent, a couple State Farm agents, where I get a couple referrals, well, maybe 1 or 2 referrals a month, a couple every other month. But this can go for a bunch of different industries that are ripe for referrals extraction. So we're talking SBA lenders. Currently, SBA requires a life insurance policy as collateral for any business loans. If you have a internet lead that is purchasing life insurance because they need this for a loan, ask who their SBA lender is. He's obviously not, he doesn't have somebody referring life insurance business. So another one is fee-only financial planners. I had a couple of those last year. Since they can't receive commissions or referral fees, they can't sell the life insurance coverage that they recommend, and they have to refer it out. Divorce attorneys in states where the courts require a life insurance policy for divorce decrees. These can actually be really big policies. I have one of these in underwriting right now, and the guy has to pay for it. He hates it, but he has to pay for it, or else he's held in contempt of court. That's what he told me. Then you also have equipment financing reps. And think this is doctors buying those 500,000 MRI machines or dentists buying all their equipment for the new office. Many, but not all of those, require life insurance as collateral for those loans to purchase that equipment. The list goes on. There's a bunch of different industries ripe for referral extraction. So the wild card in all this is having a raving client of yours, or at least having one of their clients' names to drop. So that's your in with these potential referral sources. You have their attention once you say you're working with their client. Just take care of the client when the policy is enforced and ask for the referrals. Sometimes you'll get the referral source, sometimes you won't. But all it takes is one good referral source to explode your business this year. Just be on the lookout for those opportunities throughout the year. They really can be a game changer for your business. Let's see here. So the second strategy that increased my business over the last year is getting published in niche areas to generate leads. So let's see here. With the internet booming and with social media booming, it's becoming easier to get showcased in smaller publications. This may seem a bit daunting, but just look at getting published like it's selling life insurance. Instead of selling them a life insurance product, you're selling your expertise as an article, and it's free. So this can best be described in a recent example I'm showing here on this slide. A few months ago, I wrote an article that I published on my blog, which I believe to be the best life insurance article for scuba divers on the net. I read the first few pages of Google, and the content wasn't that great. My article, in my opinion, smoked all of them with the information and value I provided. I wrote this article in September of last year. A month went by, and I made it to the top 5 in the Google results. It's awesome. I was stoked on that. I looked at my traffic to that page, and it was non-existent. Nobody's searching for that. Not many people are searching for life insurance for scuba divers. So if I knew that if any scuba diver read my article, they would see me as the expert in this niche. So I compiled a list of scuba diving resources and contacted them mostly via email and their Contact Us forms. 2 weeks later, I had undercurrent.org reach out to publish my article that goes out to 15,000 paid subscribers. I can directly link that article to $8,500 in place premium. And these were laydowns because they already knew me as the expert. They read my article. They knew I knew what I was talking about. And all I did was go to undercurrent.org's Contact Us page, and there it was, a mailing address, fax, and email address specifically for the editorial office. On top of that, my scuba diving article is being passed around various scuba diving forums, and I'm getting residual traffic and prospects from that as well. So I know I'll continue to generate new leads and new clients off the article, and I'll probably rewrite it and promote it again later on this year to some sources that blew me off in the beginning. And I plan to do this, it will be a permanent part of my marketing plan for the rest of the year. Let's see here. And there are so many niches out there. Any hazardous activity, extreme sport, or health issue is a niche. And within every niche, there's magazines and newsletters and websites looking for good content. And all I'm really doing is writing an educational article and establishing myself as the expert in a certain niche, and then sending that article off to different media sources within that niche and backing it up with a nice website for their readers to get a hold of me. So the internet, and specifically social media, have made it easy to reach out to authority publications and promote your content. And of course, you'll get more no's and no responses than yeses, but those yeses can be worth a lot of money. And this strategy has become one of my favorite ways to generate leads recently, and it is a permanent piece of my marketing strategy right now, writing articles and promoting them every week now. And the last strategy where I saw a big swing in new business this last year comes from building a segmented database of prospects. I've always told agents that your biggest asset in this business is your database of prospects. And it's worth even more if it's a segmented database. My segmented database of prospects is what I'd grab if the house was burning down. Lead companies, referral sources, and other opportunities come and go. Your database of prospects will always be there. Let's talk about the segmentation portion. This was the breakthrough for me last year. By segmenting, I mean tagging your prospects with different labels within your CRM or email marketing system, such as diabetes, depression, COPD, multiple sclerosis, scuba diver, pot smoker, any health issue really. I tag every single one of those. If somebody said they had one of those, I tag in my database on the phone with them. Same thing if it was a product they were interested in, if it's term, whole life, guaranteed universal life, no exam life insurance, final expense. I tag them with those as well. If you can take the 30 seconds to tag each prospect you've had a conversation with, your database will be a money-making machine. And here's why. Sending targeted emails produces much better results than general emails. It's a huge thing I learned this year. Your life insurance prospects aren't all the same. Sending generic emails and newsletters is, in my opinion, so 2010. The constant contacts and all those newsletters that are going out. And here's an example from a segmented email blast from a few months ago. In November, when AG38 was about to change the Guaranteed Universal Life landscape, I sent an email to all my prospects who haven't purchased coverage that expressed interest in Guaranteed Universal Life. Basically saying if you don't purchase now, rates will skyrocket within the next month or two, and a link to a couple articles in the email. Just a quick, short, and informative email referencing the AG38. So within my database, I searched for the following tags. Any record with tags that were a prospect in Guaranteed Universal Life, and any record without the tag client. So basically, I was searched for my database for anyone who expressed interest in Guaranteed Universal Life who wasn't a client already. It turned up 47 results. And I had a 41% open rate, so 19 people opened the email, 5% unsubscribed, one person unsubscribed, and I had 2 hot leads. And I took 2 applications on one of the leads, on a husband and wife, and another one, I took the application on that one as well for a total of $4,100 in premium, all from a quick email blast. It's not bad for sending out one targeted email. I'm doing this multiple times a month for any sort of news, underwriting niches, any rate drops or anything like that. So, in this example, 47 prospects doesn't seem like a lot, but that's 47 targeted prospects who I knew would be interested in my message. So it's not the size of your list, it's the quality of it. I reach out to different segments throughout the month, just depending on any sort of news that comes out. Let's see here. So here are some tips for nurturing your database. Keep the email short, and I'm talking 2 to 4 lines. No one wants to read a novel from someone trying to sell them something. Keep it personal, and don't make it sound like a canned email. Make sure you utilize the merged field so it looks like the email is specifically meant for them. And don't treat it like a newsletter with insurance news topics or ways to help them financially. That's a big mistake agents make. In my opinion, it's a one-way ticket to an opt-out. You're simply keeping in touch. And add your picture and social media icons to the emails. Let them connect with you and know you're real. And also concentrate on adding to this list every day and have some fun with it. And as far as platforms go, I'm currently using Infusionsoft. But there's other platforms out there that do the list segmentation as well, like Office Autopilot, Marketo, and HubSpot. However, I think Nick mentioned this before, but Penny is actually coming out with a CRM with segmentation within it. And I'll be switching everything over there as soon as they release that thing. The launch date, I think you said, should be in the next quarter or so. And that's it. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me. You can find me at selltermlife.com, where I write a life insurance sales blog to help grow your business. And that's about it. I'll pass it on to Ryan now.
Thanks, Jeff. And actually, I've got 2 quick questions for you.
Sure.
And I know that your use of technology. I really want to go back to the list segmentation because obviously,
sure.
you know that we think that's important too. And we're seeing a lot of results ourselves from that. You mentioned a 41% open rate on an email.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk about, I know what the normal number is, but I want you to maybe tell people what the difference between that is and a typical email send.
So when I was sending out just general emails before, even just email blasting a group of prospects that I had, I mean, I was getting maybe a 7 or 8% open rate. And that's typically the average from what I saw from my lists. So to get a 41% open rate, that's huge. And, you know, I think it's because I don't spam them at all. It's all, you know, timely and pertinent information to, you know, to either their risk or their situation. So, yeah, I mean, it's huge. The open rate is huge. And you don't need a big list because you get big open rates. And they know who you are because you've spoken with them before.
Yeah, I think that that's great. The last piece that I want to talk to you about real quickly, as they bring up the last sets of slides here, is you also mentioned that you're using Infusionsoft, and I only bring it up because people have asked a couple times here about CRMs and the different costs, and really Infusionsoft kind of operates like a CRM, but it's probably one of the more expensive ones. I mean, Marketo is probably up in the same price range. I mean, I don't know what you paid because every deal is a little bit different, but basically that CRM system, you know, to get that marketing automation and the segmenting, which obviously you felt was important enough to do, you know, it's what, $2,000 startup cost, and then, you know, $500-600 a month. Is that what you're paying for that CRM?
Yeah, I got on with a special with them. I'm paying $200 a month, and I think it was a $1,500 setup fee, and then plus I think another $500 or $600 for training. So yeah, about a $2,000 setup when I did it a couple years ago.
Yeah, and you know, one thing I want to caution everybody on here, and I'm sure everyone can, you know, anyone who wants to jump in, Nick or Jeff Rose, feel free. I mean, basically, the one thing with CRMs, and this is, as I look through the list here, I've probably been asked about CRMs, whether it be related to what CRM are you using, or how do you use it, or tagging, or whatever else. You know, really the CRM systems, all of these systems, and this is, I guess, kind of the caution or the warning, is that you had to go in and set them up. Is that correct? You had to go put in, you know, your marketing messages, your responses, your own tags. Basically, you had to think through the process.
It took me months to set up Infusionsoft before I was comfortable with using it, because it's just it's a blank template. Almost, you can call it an open source email segmentation platform, whatever you want. But yeah, I had to set it up to do what I wanted it to do. But you know, putting in the hours, it was worth it. But now that you guys are coming out with this thing, I kind of wish I waited.
Well, yeah, and I wasn't trying to plug that, but again, thanks. And I want to come back to Jeff Rose. You're using, is it Inside Sales? Is that what you're using, Jeff?
Correct.
And so, I mean, the startup on that is I guess, kind of similar. And the reason I keep coming back to this is because, you know, I don't want people to have the impression that they can just go out, buy any run-of-the-mill CRM system and sit down with, you know, the list of technology that Nick provided. There's really a couple ways to do it, and I'm not saying that everybody has to even have a CRM. Obviously, I think that if you're going to do this on any kind of volume or scale that's required, I mean, all of you guys are doing, you know, hundreds, if not thousands, of leads every single month that you're dealing with, and so it's kind of a different model. You know, when do you guys think, as a group, that you have to get involved with a CRM, or have to have the dialer, or have to have, you know, some of these technologies to actually be successful using internet marketing or using social media? When does that kind of leap take place technology-wise, that you really have to take the next step to really be successful?
If you ask me, this is Nick West, I say day one. How are you going to keep, you know, notes on a prospect or a lead? How are you going to keep notes on, you know, what you sold? How are you going to know to follow up? You know, when the client says to follow up, you know, give me a call back in 3 months. Where are you going to put that? You know, and some people may say, well, I've got my Outlook calendar, or my, you know, Google Calendar, or whatever the case may be. But that's not the best solution in my opinion. When a CRM, while it does take quite a bit of time on the front end to set up, that's the hub of your business. It's absolutely the hub of your business. And if I was still out on the streets like I had been once in the past, there's no doubt that I would have a CRM system, even if I was knocking on doors, developing prospects that way. So I'm a big, you know, proponent of day one, dollar one.
Thanks. And I'm not sure if any of the other guys have responses, but if you have anything different other than what Nick said, then I guess.
No, this is Jeff Rose. I would agree. In my financial planning practice, I use Redtail, and then when I started the online leads, I wasn't using anything. We were using an Excel spreadsheet, and it was horrible. And once we jumped to inside sales, I mean, we saw immediate ROI. I mean, literally day one, it was crazy. It's like, why did I do that for however long? But now, as Jeffrey said, like now you guys are releasing this other program, so whatever. Thanks.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. We've only got about 4 or 5 minutes left. I want to finish up. And really what I want to talk about as I close up is really some, I guess, what we would term as thought leadership. It's really going to be a little bit of a different approach. I want to talk about social media. I want to talk about mobile technology. I really want to talk about kind of what's happening in our industry, and I only have a few minutes to do it, but I'll try to cover it quickly. So, really our industry is changing. The Internet's already here. It's changed the way we do business every single day, and there's no turning back. I mean, it's kind of funny. One of the guys here in my office jokes around that we should all walk around wearing Google 1999 shirts because in 1999 is when Google was founded, and to think that was, really just 13, 14 years ago is crazy when you think about how prevalent Google is everywhere. Google is no longer just a company. It's really a term. It's when you talk about doing something, you say, well, go Google it. And so it's really changed everything. The Internet, social media, blogs, words like viral. I mean, when I was growing up, viral was you had a disease, and today it's something good because it means that a video or a posting you had was seen by lots and lots of people. And so there's really kind of a shift or change there. The rise of the direct marketer is really, really prevalent these days. There's actually an industry association called LIDMA, which is the Life Insurance Direct Marketers Association. Starting to see many producers, even guys on a smaller scale, start to participate and join those types of organizations because they are looking for kind of that knowledge and know-how related to the direct marketing space, which most of the guys here on the line are talking about. There's also new technologies that are really redefining the industry, and I really look at mobile technology. Mobile is the fastest growing piece of the technology today. Websites really need to be mobile compatible. Your quoting and your technology really needs to be mobile. I know that for myself, I use iPad and iPhone. It doesn't matter whether you use that or Droid. It's all basically the same format or the same basic idea behind it. Really is going to help you leverage what you're doing. I mean, I don't even own a laptop anymore, and the only reason I have a desktop is because I need to type once in a while. And so I think that this is something that's important. What's happening in our industry is probably best summed up by this quote here. Maria Umbach, who is actually now Maria Ferrente, she got married recently. She's the managing principal of Maddox Douglas, which is a research firm, and she's in charge of the insurance and financial services. And she talks about this Napster moment. And what she thinks is going to happen, and I happen to completely agree with her, is that there's going to be some sort of outside force or some sort of force in our industry that's going to change what we do. And we have to change as an industry. I mean, when you look at 1962, there was 72% life insurance ownership on an individual basis by households in the United States. Today it's 44%. It's the lowest it's ever been. And, we're looking at regulations that are changing. We're looking at, laws being changed. Quite frankly, we're looking at states and federal government looking at life insurance and trying to decide if they want to tax it, both the death benefit and the cash buildup inside. These are things that we have to be prepared for. And, I think that the problem that we run into is we get into this trap. We talk about pricing, underwriting, products, service. It's all kind of junk. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't have any differentiation, and there's no true value add there. That's why guys like Jeff Rose and Jeff Root, who are writing blogs, are really becoming very successful because they're providing that true value add. They're providing that differentiation. They're not looking like everybody else out there. They're doing things really on a different scale and a different level. That's helping them to succeed. And it's because they do exactly what I've always said people need to do in our industry, which is stand up, stand out, and be different. You need to decide to change. You need to find your niche, whether that's online marketing, whether that's in social media, doing stuff mobily. It doesn't really matter. You've got to find that niche. You've got to add value. Because if you're not adding value, you're just a commodity. And if you're a commodity, you're a dime a dozen. So how do you avoid this? Well, you have to differentiate. And so the only way you can differentiate is you have to distinguish yourself from your peers. You have to show and make a difference in what you do. And quite frankly, you need to discriminate because you can't be all things to all people. If you are, again, you're just kind of like everybody else and there's no value that you're providing. That's why I look at Jeff Rose. I really think that his debt movement and his IRA movements and the movements he's doing are very unique to him and very much akin to how he tries to do business. And so he's differentiated himself in this form. You know, I wouldn't want to go out and try to copy that because now I'm just like him and I actually diminish both his brand and my own. So there is a value to being discriminate in how you do your business and being a little bit different, although I think on the back end technology is important. So the technology really comes down to, we use the lather, rinse, and repeat, which is from the back of a shampoo bottle, if you're not familiar with that, for the guys on the phone maybe. We really are big fans of standardizing, systematizing, and automating. So everything we do technology-wise, we have looked at and we standardize it so that we all try to answer the phones the same way, send the same email templates, use the same processes when dealing with a lead or a client. Once we have it standardized, then we can systematize it, basically create checklists around it so that everybody can function and do things the same way. And finally, we automate it so that technology will take over the tasks and allow my people to focus on the things that are more important on it from a personal level. Things like, you know, I'd rather have a person talk about death claims than talk about, you know, processing a form. So with that, we're going to open it up to questions for those who want to stay. We are at the end of the time that we had allotted, so we appreciate everyone being patient and staying on the call today. If anyone has questions, you can go ahead and, again, type those into the chat. I believe that one question that's come up quite a bit is this webinar recorded? Yes, we did record it. All of the attendees will receive a copy of it. Again, we appreciate that. I don't see any additional questions at this point, but you're welcome to email myself or anyone else on the call. You will get a follow-up email that has that information that you can send it to us. And so, again, appreciate your time today, and thank you for participating. And one final plug. If you're not a member of NAIFA, I would strongly encourage you to do that. They're the ones who are fighting these legislation changes, trying to make it so that life insurance is taxable as a death benefit or taxable as inside buildup. If you're not out there protecting your industry, you're not really part of the industry. So I would encourage you to do that. Take a look at NAIFA.org/join. And again, thank you for your time today.